Hello, friends. Today I thought we might talk about a few more books. I chose 5 more books that I've read and enjoyed, some more recently than others. I thought we could spend some time reading the summaries, and maybe you'll see if it's something you're interested in reading, or maybe you've read them already. This first book is The Spy Who Came In From the Cold by John le Carre. This novel's copyright is 1963, and here's the summary. This brilliant novel adds John le Carre's name to the microscopically small list of really great writers of espionage fiction. In truth, it does a great deal more. It is the spy novel to end all spy novels. It dispatches the spun sugar secret agents of recent fame back to their comic opera Graustarks forever. Its central figure, Liamus, whose mission is to trap the top spy of East Berlin, is a creation of astonishing reality and authenticity. The plot he sets in motion and later becomes the principal victim of is a thing of magnificent complexity, also of far-reaching implications, for the tension within Liamus is strikingly contemporary. It is the tension of a committed man unable to come to terms with the utterly ruthless machine he serves. Only in Arthur Koestler's Darkness at Noon and Graham Greene's Burnt-Out Cases can any comparison be found. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold is a novel of the first order, terrifying in its significance, impressive in its actuality, awesome in its high political import. It happens also to be immensely thrilling. This is a really good Cold War era spy novel set in East Germany, in Berlin, behind the Berlin Wall. Interestingly, John le Carre is the pseudonym of an actual British civil servant. I believe he was actually a British spy after World War II, so in his writings he's definitely writing from at least some first-hand experience. Next book is There by Tommy Orange. This novel is much more recent, copyright 2018. And here's the summary. Fierce, angry, funny, heartbreaking, Tommy Orange's first novel is a wondrous and shattering portrait of an America few of us have ever seen, and it introduces a brilliant new author at the start of a major career. There is a relentlessly paced, multi-generational story about violence and recovery, memory and identity, and the beauty and despair woven into the history of a nation and its people. It tells the story of 12 characters, each of whom has private reasons for traveling to the big Oakland powwow. Jackie Redfeather is newly sober and trying to make it back to the family she left behind in shame. Dean Oxendine is pulling his life back together after his uncle's death and has come to work at the powwow to honor his uncle's memory. Opal Viola Victoria Bearshield has come to watch her nephew Orville, who has taught himself traditional Indian dance through YouTube videos and has come to the powwow to dance in public for the very first time. There will be glorious communion and a spectacle of sacred tradition and pageantry, and there will be sacrifice and heroism and unspeakable loss. Here is a voice we have never heard, a voice full of poetry and rage, exploding onto the page with stunning urgency and force. Tommy Orange writes of the plight of the urban Native American, the Native American in the city, in a stunning novel that grapples with a complex and painful history, with an inheritance of beauty and profound spirituality, and with a plague of addiction, abuse, and suicide. An unforgettable debut destined to become required reading in schools and universities across the country. I really enjoyed this novel. This is a setting that I'd really never read much about, Native American stories and tribes. And I found it very interesting, and the culmination of all the different story plots and character plots near the end is quite rewarding. So highly recommend There by Tommy Orange. Next up we have Falconer by John Cheever. Picture of the author on the back. This book's copyright is 1977. Here's the summary. Falconer is John Cheever's most wonderful novel, an unforgettably moving book, both fantastic and real, about a substantial upper-middle-class man and the storms of love, nostalgia, and anger that propel him into crime, into prison, and into an undreamed-of liberation. Falconer is the prison, and Farragut, fratricide, zip to 10, number 734508-32, is the convicted man. You'll go into cell block A, says the guard, Tiny, where they got the lieutenant governor and all the millionaires, but now you're in F. F stands for fuck. fucks, freaks, fools, fruits, first-timers, fat asses like me, phantoms, funnies, fanatics, phoebes, fences, and farts. There's more, but I forget it. The guy who made it up is dead. Farragut is married. You were the biggest mistake I ever made, his wife says with true grief, and has a son, Peter, who loves him, although he knows Farragut murdered his own brother. This is the story of what happens to Farragut, how he moves toward the essence of his ardor for life and beauty, how he falls in love unexpectedly and profoundly, how he experiences those hours of imprisonment that open the way to his astonishing salvation. This is a book that I only really came across because it was listed on the Time magazine Top 100 English Language Novels. I enjoyed it. It reminded me a little bit of the film Shawshank Redemption. So if you enjoyed that movie and I suppose the book that it was based on, then maybe you might enjoy Falconer as well. This next book is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. The copyright year of this novel is 2006. Here's the summary for this one. A father and his son walk alone through burned America. Nothing moves in the ravaged landscape save the ash on the wind. It is cold enough to crack stones, and when the snow falls, it is gray. The sky is dark. Their destination is the coast, although they don't know what, if anything, awaits them there. They have nothing, just a pistol to defend themselves against the lawless bands that stalk the road, the clothes they are wearing, a cart of scavenged food, and each other. The road is the profoundly moving story of a journey. It boldly imagines a future in which no hope remains, but in which the father and his son, each the other's world entire, are sustained by love. Awesome in the totality of its vision, it is an unflinching meditation on the worst and the best that we are capable of. Ultimate destructiveness, desperate tenacity, and the tenderness that keeps two people alive in the face of total devastation. This is not a pleasant book to read. It's actually quite sad and disturbing in some parts. Very post-apocalyptic. But the relationship between the father and son, I think, is the reason why this one really struck a chord with me. I think there's been a film made based on the book, but I haven't seen it. But if you've watched the film and you enjoyed that, then you might enjoy the source material. Cormac McCarthy is one of those writers that the way he writes really resonates with me. His sentences are poetic, but also very direct in a way that I think Hemingway was. And although this is not the most pleasant subject matter that he's written about, I do think it's still worth a read. And even though it's sad, I do think that it's a great novel. And finally, I have The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. This one's a real thick boy. The copyright of this one is 2001. And the summary reads like this. The Corrections is a grandly entertaining novel for the new century. A comic, tragic masterpiece about a family breaking down in an age of easy fixes. After almost 50 years as a wife and mother, Enid Lambert is ready to have some fun. Unfortunately, her husband, Alfred, is losing his sanity to Parkinson's disease, and their children have long since flown the family nest to the catastrophes of their own lives. The oldest, Gary, a once stable portfolio manager and family man, is trying to convince his wife and himself, despite clear signs to the contrary, that he is not clinically depressed. The middle child, Chip, has lost his seemingly secure academic job and is failing spectacularly at his new line of work. And Denise, the youngest, has escaped a disastrous marriage only to pour her youth and beauty down the drain of an affair with a married man, or so her mother fears. Desperate for some pleasure to look forward to, Enid has set her heart on an elusive goal, bringing her family together for one last Christmas at home. Stretching from the Midwest at mid-century to the Wall Street and Eastern Europe of today, The Corrections brings an old-fashioned world of civic virtue and sexual inhibitions into violent collision with the era of home surveillance, hands-off parenting, do-it-yourself mental health care, and globalized greed. Richly realistic, darkly hilarious, deeply humane, it confirms Jonathan Franzen as one of our most brilliant interpreters of American society and the American soul. I think this book's being chosen as one of the Oprah Book Club choices when it was released helped propel Jonathan Franzen to really new heights of stardom in the literary world. And I think some authors and even readers were a little bit skeptical of him and his abilities, and maybe resentful of his becoming such an international star after that. But I do think this is a really good novel and a good example of sort of postmodern literature around the year 2000. It is really, really funny in some places and also sad in others. It's very much a dramedy, to use a television term. But even though it's been a while since I've read this one, I still recommend it. And I think of the Jonathan Franzen books that I have read, this is still my favorite one. So if you haven't given this one a shot yet, you might like it. Well, those were the 5 books that I brought to talk about tonight. I hope you enjoyed this. I would love to hear in the comments if you enjoy reading novels or nonfiction. Maybe who some of your favorite authors are. Any recent books you've read that you highly recommend. I love to read and I'm always looking for new authors and books to get into. But thank you so much for watching and hanging out, and I hope this video finds you well. And I hope maybe a little less anxious. Until next time, goodbye.